Spook,
Yes.
as a long-time critic of Will Hoskin-Elliott, what did you think of his game on Friday night?
Well, I thought he did one really good thing.
What was that?
This.
And also, too, Sam De Koning went down also innocuously in the same game.
But he wasn't even there.
Wasn't he, Sly? Wasn't he?
Welcome back to the Collingwood Rant for 2023. I'm Sly.
And I'm 2023 Spook. Exactly the same as 2022 Spook. Just a little wider.
Spook.
Yes.
We opened the season triumphantly.
Did we?
Yeah.
Do we have another practice match?
No, might as well have been.
Oh. How are the witches' hats on the weekend?
Not tripping over thin air. So what do you think about the game against the Cats? The reigning premiers, the Cats.
Geez, that was a good game.
How many times did you think, just out of curiosity?
Oh, all three.
But how many times did you think that Vo were just going to break it open?
At least every time that they got within, was it about 3-goal lead? I thought that was it. They just looked like they're about to power over us. I mean, the other thing that added to that was their insane accuracy. Well, they kicked 64 goals, one.
Well, they went to 6 straight, then there was one behind, which was thanks to us, and I thought that would break open the behinds. And then I think they went to 16-1, and then they got 6 more behinds.
And most of their entries they ended up scoring.
Yep.
So it sort of looked like, that they were just going to gel, but we just kept swinging and coming back fighting. It was
and surprisingly,
it was un-Collingwood-like.
I mean, typically Hawkins and Cameron could be the ones who were killing us. But I mean, Tui got the first 2 goals. I mean, Rowan took a really good mark.
Does he ever play bad against us?
No, apparently not. So, the goals weren't coming from... I mean, it's one of those games where I thought, well, Tui's kicking 2 goals, okay. It's not going to be our night. But we kept in there. We knew from last season we had the capacity to overrun teams. But you're playing against a team who's the reigning premier and pretty hardened.
That was a factor. I mean, the thing is, too, is that last year we didn't score particularly highly.
Nope.
So you're taking that with you when you're watching the game, thinking, we'll splutter at some point and probably struggle to kick from here. But then the last quarter started, and it was like winding back the clock.
Well, it was very much like last season, but in reverse. So we kicked away to about a 6-goal lead, and then they just overran us, and we couldn't touch the ball. And it was very similar, but just the other way.
Ha! Cop that, Geelong.
Yep.
And who won the flag last year by doing that? Is that an omen?
Do you feel that we missed Brodie Grundy?
Who?
Exactly.
Was he wearing the cloak?
No, but in the ruck.
I thought Cox.
Cox.
Acquitted himself really well in the ruck and around the ground.
Kicked a couple of goals.
What did Brody do for Melbourne? Did he kick a goal 3 metres out from the goal square?
He might have, but we'll go to him in a minute. But
okay.
We won the tap out still. I mean,
we've won the clearances over the night too, which is...
not that Geelong has a great ruck division. They have, who is it, what's his name? St Kilda, Stanley and...
Blyclabs, is it?
Yeah, not Blitz ass.
Blyclab.
Well, and you mentioned we won the clearances. So, Mitchell, Adams, the Goey, Pendlebury looked like it was 26.
In the shade.
And then you throw in the 2 Dacoses. You sort of had all those midfielders really complementing one another and firing. And then you had some really, like, Josh Dacos had a few awesome defensive efforts.
Oh, yeah, he was exceptionally good.
Yep.
His kicking is just as clean as his brother's. I don't think he gets enough plaudits.
Well, I can't remember you mentioned it. One of the people in the media said that his kicking's actually better than Nick's, which I don't know. Looking at the metres gained, John Noble got 637 metres gained.
Is that scaled relatively to his size?
Not them to be about 1,016.
637 centimetres gained.
Nick Dacos, 579. Josh Dacos, 469. Jordan Ngoe, 418. And the one who really surprised me, Bo McCreary, 413.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good game. The gut-busting running, though, how good was it?
Yeah, from everyone or from McCreary?
Oh, from everyone. No, I'm generalising here. I mean, they were sweeping across the plains like a herd of majestic wildebeest at times, and they were running at full pace.
Yep.
I think, you look probably constructively that last quarter. Geelong stopped, in essence, because we just didn't seem to run out of pace.
No.
It was incredible.
I mean, we had more possessions, we had more contested, uncontested possessions. Disposal accuracy efficiency was around 76%, which is insanely high for Collingwood.
Some Collingwood like.
And you look at, like, there are players who are problematic users, but they used it well. And I think a lot of that, though, is they play, because they're playing a running game, you're not aiming to hit someone straight on the chest all the time, like we were trying to do with Buckley in picking our way through minefields. It's like, throw it out there 5 metres ahead, the guy's going to run onto it. So you don't have to be that surgical.
It was a combination of that, but there was some surgical precision. Like there was time that Geelong was spreading to cover the midfield to stop our run through, but we just picked through it. And when we were hugging the boundary at times and kicking with such precision, you're thinking, oh, they'll kick it out at one point. But they were just hitting blokes on the I can't say the word I was going to say, on the target on their chest. It starts with T. It ends in
T. But a lot of times they also pick their way through congestion with really neat handballs, and then they sort of just broke their way. And they always seem composed, unlike under the Buckley game plan, they often seem like they were panicked and pressured, and that they were giving up ground, rather than here, it always seemed strategic. So it was really impressive. Just going back to McCreery, he had 20 disposals, which is the highest he's had, but only the one tackle, which is what he's renowned for. The tackle was a good one, where he crunched Dangerfield. I'm pretty sure Dangerfield cried about it, like he does cry about anything that happens to him. Meanwhile, he can do whatever he wants. He can flop over and do whatever he likes.
I did hear during the game that he was having a sook to the umpires about Coxie's rucking.
Yep. He's putting his knee up. Yep. It's amazing, someone like him, Cochin, these guys that whinge about the umpiring, but then expect frees constantly, and then they do, I don't know, some snide things themselves, where you think, well, people should be whinging about the way you guys play. The newbies, how do you think they went? Dan McStay.
Who? Look, I think he struggled to get into the game. I think Radigaleo covered him really well. It just didn't seem to gel. But then, like, probably Miacek was a similar type game. Mio kicked one or two. McStay kicked one from a free. I think both of them had very similar games. It just didn't seem that type of game for a big man. So I'd cut him a little bit of slack this one week, but he has to kick 42 this week.
But do you think, like, he provides some structural functionality like Anthony Rocker? So even if he has 5 possessions, he actually opens it up for everyone else because he competes. He breaks it open, means Mychek can stay down a bit more, play a bit more running.
Yeah, well, he played, I think he kept him intentionally deep. He did. I didn't recall him ever running too far up the ground. No. Mio did a couple of times, but he played very, very much out of the square. I don't know. Again, it's just hard to read much into one game, but he was quiet.
Yeah.
But even when there were contests, he didn't really bring the ball to the ground all that often. It was just, I don't know, maybe, I think Radigali had the best of him. Look, it's one game. He'll bounce back.
Well, Coxie also drifted forward twice and, took some nice marks. So again, Anthony Rocker could have low position games back in the early 2000s, but then the forward line functioned just simply because he was there. And that he was there, they could all sort of orbit around him. He could crunch a pack, or he could lead defenders away, or whatever the case might be. Bobby Hill.
He surprised me because we were talking about this beforehand. I probably...
You and him?
Yeah, I was on the phone with him. He's good. I wasn't really taken with his practice match form, but it's practice match. As an outlier, it's... I probably thought it might take him 5 or 6 games to get a little bit of presence, but he hit the ground running and really, really surprised me. That three goals... he attacked a lot of contests. He was all over the place in terms of coverage. Times, I was really, really encouraged by it. He looks exactly what we need. And I think if he can keep this going, they've nailed that pick.
Yeah, I was really...
Pick up, rather.
I was really impressed with that in relation to the 2 practice games. I was looking at him going, you're still a little bit off it. And he just went to another level. This was like he was just going, it's a practice game. And in this... he was fantastic. Tom Mitchell?
Oh, he was fantastic. Would end up with 11 contested...
him and Adams have formed a really good tandem.
Yeah. Well, they were playing him, they were rotating him between high half forward and midfield, and it really worked well. I think Adams had an exceptionally good game as well, but I really liked Titch's game. He was a bit quiet during the pracky matches too and stuff, but I think once it hits the real stuff, and he's obviously a seasoned campaigner, he really impressed. 2 goals as well. I think it was a great first performance for us.
Oh, the guys were really impressed. And, I mean, you talk about other guys. The Goey had a great game. I really liked that last goal he kicked the sealer because he took the responsibility. It was like, I'm 50 out, screw it, I'm going to have a shot. And he kicked it, and then he just turned and he just sort of soaked it all in. It was all like...
I saw a halo around him as well. It was amazing.
And Pendlebury, like I said, he played like he was 26. That's the best game I've seen him play in 5 years, I reckon.
Jesus, he'd be good for 500, I think, 500 games.
I should notch him up, you know.
What is he, 34? He'd have to be the best looking 34 ever to run around at the moment. He just doesn't look like he's slowing down or being even put into a position where he's going to do a lot of resting or something. He's just at it.
Well, the last few years...
I can't believe you bagged him a couple of years ago and said he was done.
Yeah, last few years, he's actually carried back injuries and, you know, finger injuries and stuff like that, so...
Well, he was carrying Collingwood for a number of years.
No, for quite a few years. Ollie Henry?
Unfortunately, I think he's going to be good for Geelong. His game wasn't terrible, but...
I got 2 goals and he was...
I did enjoy the rundown from Moody, but
then we just turned it back over.
Turned it back over. They got a goal at any rate. But it's good footage, that isolated part.
And that was the same with the Josh Dacos spoil. They just got a goal straight after that anyway. So yeah, the 2 acts were fantastic. The 2 Dacoses.
Oh, how good is it watching these blokes? I think there was one passage that stood out for me. It was Nick's done that sort of blind handball over the shoulder, and Josh just intercepted it.
Yeah,
about 2 metres away, and then the ball was just driven forward. It's just like that cracker type awareness of each other. They're going to be absolutely magnificent to watch for the next decade.
Oh, look, I think as a game, there's actually very few players didn't contribute. Probably Hoskin Elliott actually got a bit of the ball at the start and messed it up.
He took out the Koenig.
Yeah, well, that was good. But there was, you know, Noble was really good. He gave him that first goal. It'd be very easy for a player to just sort of go, oh, well, I've messed that up and just stay in their shell. He just kept attacking. And that's probably one of his strengths. He's like, he has the memory of a goldfish.
Hoskin?
No, Noble.
Oh,
it's like, if he messes up, he just keeps going for it. He does not retain that.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He'll never be declared a match winner or anything like that, but geez, he's super consistent with his role that he plays. I think he does it exceptionally well. He'd be one of the first pick every week, I think, on his current.
Yeah, I think
his last couple of years.
Look, I'm still unsure about him because I got to see him do this in like a grand final or a prelim.
Maybe in his 280th game, you could say something nice about him.
Well, he's got nice blonde hair.
It's interesting here.
No, I mean, there's players there, and it's great to play great in home and away seasons, but when it comes to the pointy end, and you look at the 3 finals we played, there were guys, I'm not singling anyone out, but there were guys who really struggled, and obviously there's pressure, and, you know, some of these players haven't played in finals or played at that level or whatever the case, but, you know, if you want to win flags, these guys have to do it on the biggest stage. So, you go back to the the Tom Hafey sides. We had great home and away sides. It didn't always necessarily translate to grand finals. So I'm just saying with some of these players, great home and away form. Want to see them do it in the big stage.
Well, hopefully they're consistent this year and they build to those moments.
What did you think of?
You've had experience last year with them, so
yep.
in the finals,
I mean,
you're going to build on that.
In relation to Noble, he's still a relatively inexperienced player. So, what do you think of Darcy Moore's probably most important touch in fixing Nathan Murphy's hairband?
Were they doing any songs from Saturday Night Fever at the time?
I don't know what that was about.
He's showing his on-field leadership.
Yeah,
grooming skills.
Jeremy Howe's horrific injury.
Yeah, geez, that was hard to look at.
Oh, that was exactly what I did in '86. So
at the MCG.
Yeah, no.
Over Stengel. Exactly the same.
Well, he wouldn't have been born, but it was a similar incident where I got flicked in midair and fell on my arm and broke both bones and had surgery and all that sort of stuff. So the moment he did that, and then he was on the ground and said he's broken his arm, like I just knew exactly what he'd done.
All that and the fact of the footage of it being bent.
No, it was even before that. Like, it was just still down. I was going, he's broken his arm. Because that's exactly what happened to me. And I'm glad he's out for 8 to 10 weeks because he should be suspended for attacking the ball. I mean...
Thanks, Robbo.
Yes, so Mark Robinson, the complexity of football. I'll read this out relatively quickly. Say Jeremy Howe knocked out Tyson Stengel, busted his jaw and cheekbone in 20 years' time. Stengel has a jelly brain. He went to Geelong, I think that's already there. Is that just bad luck? But he went to Geelong? No. On Friday night, Howe broke his arm when it could have easily been Stengel's head. According to the rules, it would be impossible to decree, but Howe was in the wrong. He left his opponent, Jeremy Cameron, closed the space and jumped at the ball. How dare he? But at the same time, that sort of action from Howe can't be encouraged. That's right, we cannot encourage players to go for the ball. Howe could have stopped, propped, bodied out Stengel and marked the ball. Instead, he launched in the air, recklessly or carelessly or adventurously, collecting an unsuspecting Stengel on the way through. However, did Stengel survive? And that's footy. It is a sport, not for the faint-hearted, and accidents are prevalent, but it was a collision which could have been avoided, and in today's concussion environment and future discussion, maybe should be avoided.
There's a lot of words that made a semblance of sense there. Should I perhaps translate for the viewers?
Yeah, translate.
I'll put it into Robo Spook. Do you agree?
I totally agree with that. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. It's like...
It's one of the more incredible articles written. I mean, could he have just come out and said it's Howe's fault and he should be suspended? I think what he wants to say is that he deserves 4 weeks for that, Howe, and he should serve that suspension when he comes back.
I think this is a big problem with today's game.
Robbo?
Yes. And the two Maynard deliberates...
Oh, they were ridiculous.
So both times he was effectively just trying to stop the opponent from getting it, and the boundary was just there. And the second one, he did a little lollipop sort of kick off the ground, which ended up rolling out, and he was pinged for deliberate both times. And now you get like Mark Robinson, you can't go for a mark when you'd have gone for a mark every other time. It's like the deliberates. You're basically saying to the player, we're just going to take this option out of your arsenal because we have a duty of care, or we're going to keep the ball, and it's just fucking ridiculous. Players attack the ball, and,
That's it.
That's it. And with the two Maynard ones, I thought they were absolutely absurd because they really were just spoiling the opponent. He wasn't thumping for the boundary. If you're going to say, well, the player can't spoil an opponent or can't kick the ball away from the opponent, what's the option? That he should just keep it there and turn it over? Well, that would be great. And for someone like Half, the alternative is, well, you need to reconsider leaping at the ball and playing an option that you might not even win the ball. It's fuck you. Seriously. Yeah. Just accept the players get hurt. It's tragic that players get hurt. It's tragic that players get concussions and shit like that. But the reality is you can't stop them from fucking attacking the ball.
And when you look at that footage, he's all but marked that ball. It's Stengel going back for the flight of the ball, and this is just it's just an unfortunate accident where they've hit each other. But Stengel's pretty much hit Howe in the thigh area and just flipped him over.
Yeah. And
then he's come down. But you see, he's literally, he would have marked that ball if Stengel had been kind enough to stand still. But let's say he was stationary and Howe would have leapt over him and marked it. It's what he does. It's what he does 58 times a game. This was just unfortunately, it just ended up being a bad incident. That's it. That's football.
Well, funnily, in 211, Alan Tuvey ran back with the flight of the ball and ran into Hawkins' knee and got knocked out and ended up in hospital.
How many weeks did he get?
But that was actually the narrative back then too. It was like what he did shouldn't be allowed because he was tunnelling the guy and jumping at the ball. So it's like, okay, both times the Collingwood player's fault, even though one time they were going for the ball in the air and the other time they were the person under the ball and tunnelling the player going for it. And it just shows how ludicrous the fucking media is. And we watched a little bit of AFL 360 about as much as we could stomach. I mean, you really have gutter journalism at its worst now. It's really appalling.
It's stuff written to incite. You can't. You'll attract more people by writing not so much vitriol, but shit. That is designed just to make you hate the person even more that's writing it, and you keep coming back.
Well, I've always thought it's bullshit, but recently I've been listening to the podcast of a guy who ran a pro wrestling company 20 years ago. And as part of the podcast, they reference old shows, and they use a journalist, his columns as a frame of reference for what was going on. And the guy who ran the company, he just goes, that's total bullshit. He goes, that never happened. The amount of times he goes back, he calls them dirt sheet writers. He goes, they're just writing on rumours or making up shit for clicks. And that's exactly what a lot of AFL journalism is now. It's
You
and
got
particularly
a lot of air to fill every single day.
and particularly, without giving away too much. I mean, there was stuff we were hearing a couple of years ago, and then correlating that with what was actually happening in the media. The media were giving away narratives that were, from our knowledge, were nowhere near the fucking truth. Were so far from the truth they were just fiction.
Why are you bringing Caro into this?
It wasn't her specifically. Who comes in for how, you think?
Well, I think
I'd have to
obviously
be Frampton or Kelly.
Yeah, I'd say definitely one of those two. You'd think Frampton's... I mean, he wasn't setting the world on fire. He did some nice things, but also fluffed a few things as well. I'd say probably he'll get more of a chance than Kelly would initially. But I'd like to see Kelly still develop into that role as well. So hopefully, I don't know how he went in the VFL on the weekend.
Did they play?
Yeah. Ash Johnson kicked 4 on the VFL.
Oh, that's right, they did play. I'd actually be
That's all I know about.
I'd be actually interested, whoever they use, I'd actually be interested if they used them in the Moore role, and then they just had Moore playing more the house sweeping role.
I was going to say that, because obviously we have to replace the sub, but Reef obviously did more than enough to retain his spot.
Yep.
So that's your team. Look, you don't think you'd be dropping anyone from this game at any rate, but you wouldn't make him sub again. Maybe you make Hoskin Elliott sub. Has he been sub before?
Don't know.
How many times would he get sat on the bench?
I don't know. Has he been out there? Oh, he has actually. Sorry.
But look, it'll obviously come down to matchups as well this week, but yeah, they might be stiff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well players doing in the VFL and what their plans are. Because look, when McInnes came on, that was coincided with the momentum turning. So, in terms of matchups.
Well, I think you don't want to make it sound too nasty, but without Howe there, I thought Murphy got into the game a hell of a lot more as well, and that's obviously could be a byproduct of it. But he looked $1 million better than he did in the first half.
Well, there's a couple of times that Howe was behind the ball and leapt and didn't leap the way he used to because he's just older. So, look, this is someone's opportunity to seize that position and to make him earn it back. I mean, we know he's the end comes for everyone, except for Pendlebury. But in terms of transition, Roughhead went out last year and you had Murphy coming in. So this is an opportunity for Kelly or for Frampton to go. And this is why they've recruited Frampton, to give him this chance. So one of them need to actually seize the role.
Seize the day.
Any final thoughts about the Port game?
The Port game?
Sorry, the Geelong game? It's going to go to the Port game.
No, I mean, other than the fact, look, it was a bit of to and froing for those first times that we had to get back into the game, but that last quarter was just magic to watch. Just watching it unfold, it was just so exciting. If they can do more of this, I'll be very happy this year.
Oh, definitely. Well, it goes back to what we've been saying. People go, can we replicate winning so many close ones? And like we've been saying, well, maybe they can turn some of those 5-point wins into 25-point wins, which is effectively what happened. They won a relatively close, comfortable game. They controlled it all. They got like 2, 3, 4 goals up. They never looked like they were going to lose it. Whereas last year it was always within a goal. We're winning within a couple of minutes left. They've got to control the tempo. It's all sort of desperate stuff. A few times the opposition's gone forward and it's still been close. I mean, you look at like last year when we beat Carlton, they still went forward a couple of times where it looked like they could snatch the lead back. From memory, Adelaide was going forward when we beat them. So, there was still potential swings in those games, whereas this one, it didn't feel like there was any swing. It just felt like we controlled it. We had a lead. We continued to expand it, and we shut Geelong out of it. Having said that, Port Adelaide. So they started the season with a win.
Good win too, wasn't it?
Yeah, they smashed Brisbane. Jason Horne-Francis got the fuck out of North Melbourne. He's happy now.
Is he smiling?
Why wouldn't he be smiling?
Is he happy he's at home?
Look, I'm not going to be a prick, but I will. If I was an 18-year-old and I was drafted to a club that I thought, I really don't want to be at this club because it's just a nothing club, and no offence to North Melbourne, but they are a nothing club. And particularly like when you're looking into South Australia, you could be playing for Port or Adelaide. I want to get the fuck out of here. Why are people complaining? If I was drafted at Gold Coast, do you think I'd really want to stay at Gold Coast for the next 15 years? Or do you think I'd want to make my way to like Carlton, Richmond, Collingwood, Essendon, one of those teams?
Club with a chance.
I wouldn't even care. I would have rather played for Carlton in their horror run of the 5 wooden spoons than for like Bulldogs when they're up there winning prelims. Because one, I would have had a lot of laughs down there playing at Carlton. But geez, you'd want to be playing for a club with some marquee. I know the AFL loves the equalisation and all this shit, but the reality is some clubs have marquee and others don't. And you can try and push certain clubs to, give them prime real estate on television, and you know what? They're not going to win over fans. They're not going to win audiences because some clubs have a greater rivalry and all that sort of stuff than others.
No, sounds impressive. So anyway, he should be homesick this weekend, having to play away. So we'll expect him to do nothing.
No, I think he's going to be really, really good this year for them.
He did look good in that opening game, but hopefully he just looks elsewhere this week.
So we don't know who they'll replace for Howe, Frampton, or Kelly, or maybe they'll do something totally left field. Play Hoskin Elliott down there. I don't know. Maybe they'll play McStay down there and bring Ash Johnson in.
Yeah, probably not.
You don't know. Or maybe they'll play Mychek down there.
Yeah, we've been calling for that for about 8 years.
Oh, yeah, there's a swap. But what are your thoughts about playing Port? It's too early to say. I mean, Port's been pretty average for about 5 years. I know they made the finals in the COVID years, but that was when they had like 19 home games and they were barely travelling.
Look, they would have been well and truly up for it. I heard Hinkley say, this is obviously last weekend, this is only the third time since he's been coached that they've had the opening game at home. I think they were massively up for that and wanted to make a bit of a statement. Brisbane, geez, they looked ordinary. So you don't know how much you can read into Port's win. Coming over here and facing us at the G could be a little bit more challenging, I think. So I'm hoping that we do exceptionally well and only lose this by 10 goals.
I'll hope we win this by 41 points and then everyone declares us flag favourites.
One of us will be right, the other one will be wrong.
Yeah. Do you hope we get Brett Rosebery as an umpire?
You want to say something about Brett?
No, I love his umpiring.
Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I didn't think the umpiring was all that bad. There's a couple of howls, but I don't really recall noticing much more than that, but you obviously did.
Look, it's the double standards that piss me off. It's really sort of just, they pay that, but they don't pay, something else, which is exactly the same. I hate the arbitration to hold the ball rule. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. And that started on the Thursday night with Carlton Richmond. I did notice, like, in the first half of the game, I thought the Rosebery umpiring was pretty average against us.
Do we know what that 50 that Henry got was for? Did anyone work it out?
I think it's because he missed his shot.
Because he did. He snapped and hit the post. Miles. And then he's lining up straight out in front. What was the 50 for?
Oh, I don't know. I got no idea.
I've had no one been able to explain that. If you know, put in the comments. If you don't know, make something up.
If you put in the
do we ever have any people write in the comments?
Yeah, we do, but unfortunately we sort of check always about 4 weeks later.
Were they good comments?
Yeah. Some asides. Brodie Grundy watch. Did you watch Brodie Grundy for Melbourne?
Oh, I looked a little bit at it. I didn't see him out there much do anything. I think there was one nice little passage he did. He kicked another Melbourne goal 2 centimetres out from the top of the goal square. That's really about it. Did he tap to anyone?
He tapped a few to his feet. I said it last year before they got him. Max Gorn's the best ruckman of the last 20 years. Why they feel they need to get a ruckman to usurp him so he goes plays forward's the most ridiculous thing.
Considering Gorn doesn't convert all that well.
But considering, Gorn is just sublime as a ruckman, and he killed them. He absolutely blitzed them. Grundy had a really typical Collingwood game. Ground level, he did some really good stuff. The big man stuff, he didn't really do that so well. So, I hope he does well for Melbourne's sake, but I just look at Melbourne and think, when they had Luke Jackson there, they were playing him in the ruck and they were playing Gorn up forward, and I was just like, no, Gorn's the guy you play in the ruck. And then you work out what happens with everyone else around him.
Anyway, he'll do nothing all year until we play them in the grand final.
Well, we'll get 70 taps, so at least 30 of those should go to us.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you?
Thoughts on going to AFLW. Thoughts on Chloe Malloy, Steph Chiocci and Jamie Lambert all leaving the Pies.
And resigning Fredericton.
I tell you they resign. It's good to actually resign someone.
It's taken a little bit of the interest out of it for...
Not a little bit.
It's like you've had all these years to try and build a side that...
I followed this side for 8 years or whatever it is, to building toward a contention.
And now you're back to square one in a competition that's already got a very thin spread of consistent talent. You got some very good players and then a lot of also rans.
Yeah.
It's now you look at our side, and it's all the good parts have been taken out.
Except for like, you have Brianna Davey and
She's
Benici
coming back from her knee.
But I mean, the one that really pissed me off, it's not so much Chiachi and Landit, it's more the Malloy one, who was, according to sources, manoeuvred to Sydney by greater football interest than the clubs, because that's the way, and I don't want to mention the organisation, but it's the AFL work in trying to promote the game elsewhere. So that really pisses me off, that she was sort of pushed that way when she didn't really want to go that way, and she was given like an offer that she couldn't refuse. So,
that'd be evident.
And seriously, I've defended this league and I've followed it and just gone, okay, we're building to something, and now you've just gutted, and it's like, well, fuck you, not the Collingwood AFLW side. I'm talking about the AFL for running it this way, for just building this small league and then expanding it so quickly to just spread players to the wind. And it's like, well, you've diluted the talent pool. It went from really rough to watch to really decent to watch to now it's so spasmodic. And clubs that were building and were trying to do the right thing from inception have just been sabotaged.
Yeah, it's an incredible exercise in shooting yourself in the foot.
It's not even it's not even the club shooting itself in the foot. It's
I don't
the
think it's
AFL,
the club.
yeah.
It's the AFL itself. It's you can't build this thing this quick, so wide. I mean, what have we got now? We've got a replication of every senior AFL team in the AFLW now, haven't we?
Yeah.
So...
and Gold Coast.
Did we get any compensation picks, or do we have to give them
the
thing as well?
From Malloy. You got nothing from Malloy, so she just basically went for nothing. So, and
we got shafted.
But in this league, the way it's structured at the moment, who gives a fuck if you get the top picks, because the way it is just still a gamble, a lot of it.
No, you're exactly right.
So,
and really, there's no sort of. So, what's your feeder comp these days? I suppose probably the VFL really. So I mean, you could probably name most prospective first round picks for the blokes, but you wouldn't have a clue who. No,
I know Malloy was sort of highish and all that, but I don't know who else went in that draft. Like I said, it's actually killed my interest in it. And you have clubs in all forms of sport who have marquee players, and you're trying to build fan support based on those marquee players, and they've just really gutted Collingwood. And it's something I think just counterproductive for building this competition. I think, but to be fair to the AFLW, the administrators, I think they've just done a whole list of stupid decisions from the beginning, like playing him in the summer, all that sort of stuff. Whereas they should have been framed in a different. I mean, sometimes you had these AFLW teams playing in like 30-degree, evenings, and that's like.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, you got nothing happening before the blokes.
I would have.
You think it's the curtain raiser would be the obvious thing, wouldn't you?
I would have thought you would have done it in a way that you could, either like start a little bit earlier than the blokes, then turn it into a curtain raiser for the blokes, or even play it concurrent to the blokes, or
play it during the blokes.
Or you could even you could have structured it in the way so their grand final was on bye week before the finals, something like that. But they decided to play in shit hot weather.
Yeah, they seem to be throwing around just to try and find a spot to make it stick. So it's a strange one. It's got us confused here at the Rant.
I'm not confused.
And we're not easily confused, are we, Phil?
I'm not confused, Mark. I'm just angry. Any final thoughts?
No, it's a beautiful start to the year. Hopefully we come away with a handy little win against Port and display the same type of form. I don't think we can peak too early. We're only just starting.
The one thing I'll say is, McRae said that we're way ahead of where we were last year at this time of the year. So you think they've had a year playing under him. They obviously took quite a while to undo 10 years of the Buckley coaching, and that's not a criticism of Buckley, but just, he played under another coach for 10 years. It's going to take a little while to untangle that. And you can see that last year, they were still occasionally doing some sideways kicks that were going nowhere and shit like that. So, look, the way they played was beautiful. It was really one of the best games I've seen us play for going back to 2-11, I reckon.
The clearly evident fitter side at the end was us. And you think that Jared Wade deserves a few plaudits thrown his way, because the last 10 years we just had endless soft tissue injuries. This guy's come in, and that stuff's pretty much stopped.
Yeah, he's onto the structural issues now.
Yeah.
The shoulders and
the arms and stuff like that. But that's from generally reckless and going in hard.
This is not a boating accident.
There was no boats out there on Friday night, Saturday night.
It was a large squalus.
For these waters. Yeah, so I think he deserves a fair bit of praise because he's doing some wonders. Because it was interesting during the press conference, McRae said that they'd been training solidly for that 2-week period over the Pracky match stuff, and he said he wasn't all that overly concerned with the form. They sort of just treated it as another sort of training run. So they've been really loading, and you know, looking at some of the other games on the weekend, they're played at such a lower tempo. Now, obviously, because you had Geelong and Collingwood, you know, who are two reasonably good sides. Well, one of them is. That game was going to be played at a lot more breakneck pace. But some of the other ones just look glacially slow.
Oh, you compare it to
the skills in some of the sides out there.
Yeah, you compare it to the blockbusters. Like the first night, Carlton Richmond was just error laden. The first half was really defensive. It opened up a little bit more in the second half, but it was still a very defensive and ugly game. And you're sort of looking and going, "Oh, this probably take a while for these clubs to really hit to get their tempo." And the next night was just like, "Fuck, this is like a game. This is almost like a final." You know, the whole speed of it's different. The skills, I mean,
yeah, very sharp.
You know, and what was it, like 125 to 102 points or whatever the hell it was, you know, compared to the Richmond Carlton game, which is, I think they both struggled to break 24 points or whatever it was. But the skill level was completely different. I mean, Geelong also looked good a lot of that game.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so you see sort of some reports like with Kane Collins in that game, or maybe they're complacent and that. It's like they scored 100 points. They weren't complacent. They were playing pretty well.
Yeah, well, they copped a few injuries. You know, that certainly helped us. But the overall standard of the game was you know, exceptionally high. And I hope that's just more for reflective about how we're going to approach the season. If you keep that standard up, you'd be unstoppable.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, the thing is, they're never going to die wondering.
We sound like Collingwood supporters.
Yeah. Well, look, you know, you didn't know where they were going to get after the Buckley era. You thought they'd be lower for longer.
For a lot longer.
Yeah. But you look at the inclusions. You know, you put Nick Dacos in there, you put elite talent in there, you're going to get an elite return, which you did. Josh Dacos has really gone up several levels. So you get guys like Pendlebury and Sidebottom showing resurgent form, and then you get others like Elliott and that who played well last year. So, you know, their talent really sort of rose. And again, is that good enough to win a flag? I don't know.
Let's hope so.
I mean, I'd be really a lot more confident if they did have like a Curnow and McKay down forward.
Yeah. But, you know, well, we may find a system that just absolutely works. We had a nutty year when it came to scoring in 18 without a recognisable key forward, so here's hoping.
How they go in the grand final?
Yeah, as usual.
Go back to like 210, 211 in that little era. When Travis Clyde was down there, it was like, I'm confident when it's down there. It's like that prelim final win against Hawthorn in 211. Where he just rose up and took this really, really good pack mark, and then, shockingly, he converted. With him down there going, well, he's going to be a really good chance of marking. No disrespect to Myercheck or McStay, they're not really contested marking beasts. So, and you go back and look at us statistically, Rocker, Cloak, and all those guys were always at the top of contested marks. I think Cox is up there now, but, you know, McStay and Myercheck, they don't have the size to do that. Anyway, we're sort of going on another tangent. Anything final?
Nah, I think we're done.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Later.
No, they'll see us. We won't see them. That technology doesn't exist yet.
What about that guy? Later.
See ya.